left so many.
Good morning. This is a mimer about Pesach, of course, in honor of Yud Aleph Nisan, the Rebbe's birthday. And it starts on the pasuk, Kimei Tzeischo me'eretz Mitzrayim ha'erenu neflois. A pasuk in Micha, talking about the times of Mashiach, where he says that like the days that you went out of Mitzrayim, I'm going to show you wonders when Mashiach comes. So we saw tremendous miracles and wonders when we went out of Mitzrayim. We're going to see similar wonders when Mashiach comes. That brings the famous question from the Zohar, why this pasuk says Kimei plural, like there are many days of going out of Mitzrayim, or multiple days, asking, Mitzrayim was a one-day occurrence. We were in and we got out. Why does he say like the days, plural, of going out of Mitzrayim? We also find this by the mitzvah of Zechiras Yetzias Mitzrayim. You have to remember the fact that it went out of Mitzrayim every day. It says Zachar es Yom, right, singular, the day that you went out of Mitzrayim. Leman tizkar Yom Tzeischo me'eretz Mitzrayim. And again, you have one day going out of Mitzrayim. All of a sudden, in Micha, he says like the days, plural. It's only one day. Second question, why do you say, like the days you went out of Mitzrayim, I'm going to show you wonders? Which simply means that when Mashiach is going to come very soon, we're going to have wondrous experiences, and we're going to see it, like we did when we went out of Mitzrayim, meaning it's going to be similar to then. And it's not understood, because we'd have many psukim, Mamarei Razal, sayings from our sages, that tell us that the Geula that's going to come with Mashiach is incomparable to what we had before, in the sense that it's going to be a Geula that has no Golos afterwards. We went out of Mitzrayim, it was a major deal. But unfortunately, we weren't totally out of the woods, in the sense that we went into Golos again. Not right away, but we had other problems, multiple times. So we get out of Golos, we're not fully, it's not a complete Geula, because we ended up in Golos again. When Mashiach is going to come, Ein achareha Golos. There is no Golos after that. The third base of English is going to stand forever. So why do you say it's going to be similar to that? This is a totally different level. This is eternal, and that was temporary. Still an amazing deal. We're not minimizing it, but to compare the two, it's totally different channel. This is why, because the Mashiach comes, we're going to have a Geula which has no Golos afterwards. This is why it's a discussion if we mention Yetzias Mitzrayim after Mashiach comes. Today, we mention Yetzias Mitzrayim every day, multiple times a day. It's the third section of Shema, plus Chasidus and so on. When Mashiach will come, it's not so simple in halacha that we should mention Yetzias Mitzrayim, because we're well beyond that stage. Mashiach already came. That was a temporary thing which had multiple goals in afterwards. Now we're in a totally different era. Why mention the past? And even according to the one opinion that you do mention Yetzias Mitzrayim after Mashiach comes, you need to have a special limud for that, because it's not so simple to understand it. So you see that going out of Mitzrayim versus the Geula are two totally different things. And yet our pasuk, which is the opening of this mimer, says, just like the days went out of Mitzrayim, I'm going to show you wonders. Somehow that's like the benchmark, and we're comparing it, and it's similar to. More so, the very words, like the days I took you out of Mitzrayim, I'll show you wonders, implies that the going out of Mitzrayim was the beginning and the root of the Geula that we have now. Somehow this is a continuation of what was then. You saw some stuff then, you're about to see more stuff now. And it's also hard to understand, because you're basically telling me that the Geula of Yetzias Mitzrayim is greater than the Geula to come. Because that was the beginning, that was the start, this is a continuation of that. Not just that you're comparing it, which we think it's incomparable, because based on what we know that it's eternal, and there's no Golos afterwards, but besides that it's incomparable, you're telling me that was the beginning, or you're implying that was the beginning, that was the root, and now we're just following that which was already started. Which again is a hard thing to process, because compared to this, that's nothing. Okay, so we have these questions, why it says plural or singular, days of going out of Mitzrayim, why we could even compare it if it's incomparable, because the goal is so much greater, and so on. To understand this, he delves deeper into the meaning of this pasuk, Kimei Tzeischo me'eretz Mitzrayim ha'erenu neflois. So the Kudah is like this. In this pasuk, that when Mashiach comes, I'm going to show you wonders like when you went out of Golos, Mitzrayim, there's two Pirushim. One is that the Geula Asid is going to be like the Geula of Yitzias Mitzrayim. You saw wonders then, you're going to see similar wonders now. Whatever those wonders are, maybe it's Makkos, maybe it's the fact that we escaped without a war, the fact that no slave ever got out, and the whole nation got out, the various different miracles that took place, many of them, whether it's 50 or 100, more. That's one pshat, that you saw miracles then, you're going to see wonders now. The second pshat, however, is that the neflois, the fact, when do you say something is a wonder? When you say it's not typical, you never saw anything like this, you ain't seen nothing yet, right? This is a wonder compared to that. By Geulas Mitzrayim, we saw pretty cool stuff. Okay, wonders, we call it, niflois. When Mashiach comes, it's still going to be wondrous because it's going to be much greater than it was before. If you saw a miracle every single day, after a while, you don't think it's cool. You're not going to call it a wonder. This is typical. I get it, but it's typical. So when you say, I'm going to show you wonders compared to what it was then, the first shot was, just like that was a miracle, you're going to see miracles now. The second shot is, you thought that was a wonder, this is a real wonder. So it means it's going to be much greater than it was then. Yeah? V'hainu, which means that even in regards to the regular neflois, which Mashiach will come, which are going to be similar to what it was by Yetzias Mitzrayim, it's still going to be considered to be more wondrous, greater level of miracles than it was before. Now, to understand this in a Kabbalistic way, or a little bit deeper according to the language of Chasidus, it's known that by Yetzias Mitzrayim, Hashem had to take us out of the 49 gates of impurity. We lived for multiple generations in Golos Mitzrayim. It's Ervas Haaretz, which is the shame of the land. Among all the places in the world, Mitzrayim was steeped. It was just the lowest immoral place in their behaviors and way of living and so on. And the Yidden stooped very low in impurity. 49 gates, levels of Tumah, Klippa. And Hashem had to pull us out of those 49 levels, which is why as soon as we get out of Mitzrayim, the next day, the next night, we start counting Excuse me. Because each day of Sfira, which are 49 days, we go out of another level of Klippa. We get out of another level. And this is why, and this happens, in other words, what's the technical mechanism for this to take place? It's through the Hamshacha of Chamishim Sharei Bina. There is this huge, intense level of godliness called Sharei Bina, and there's 50 of them, Chamishim Sharei Bina, or Nun Sharei Bina, and Hashem allowed for this flow of Chamishim Sharei Bina to come to the Jewish people, and as a result, we got out of Mitzrayim, out of the 49 gates of impurity.
The 50th day was shows that.
Yeah. But we start counting right away.
Yeah.
And this is why, it's a very interesting thing. He says, why Yetzias Mitzrayim is mentioned 50 times in Torah. These days you can look it up very easily. How many times does it say something specific in Torah? There's a side note that says Moshe 770 times in Tanakh. 770. I didn't make it up.
What a coincidence.
But why does Torah mention 50 times Yetzias Mitzrayim? Because it corresponds to the 50 levels, the Nun Sharei Bina, which were flowing down to get the Yidden out of the Memtes Sharei Tumah. Now, it's not so complicated, just follow along. So in the Nun Sharei Bina, you have 3 levels of how this could work. So there's this awesome level of Gilui Elikos, godly revelation, called Nun Sharei Bina, but there are 3 different ways how it comes down into this world. Number 1, Kimei Shemeshachem b'Malchus, the way it flows into Malchus. Briefly, Malchus is the 10th Sfira, which means it's more relatable, or it connects more. It's something which could interact with this world. And this is what the Sitra, the Yevla, which is Bina, comes into Malchus. The side of Yevla, which is Bina, which is 50, this level that we just mentioned, flows down into Malchus. Now there's a higher level than that, where it's not the way, here's another sefer, 2 more. Other. There's another one, how it comes down into how Bina comes down. It's that the Nun Shari Bina, the way they are in their place. It's not the way it flows down into Malchus. Rather, it stays where it is. So you're getting a revelation of this Nun Shari Bina at a stage where Bina is not just where Bina is not just coming down into Malchus so that you could relate to it, but it's in its source, the way, where it comes from. The way it is included in Sharnun, which is B'chinas Keser, and Keser Gufa, B'chinas Atik. Let me explain. So, Nun Shari Bina is what was used to pull us out of the 49 gates of impurity. There's three ways how this Nun Shari Bina could connect with us, could come down. Number one, the way it comes down into Malchus, which is a typical way how high levels of godly revelation interact with this world. Goes through all the spheres, right? Malchus, and in Malchus it already starts to interact and translate to the next world, and that's the mechanism. Royalty, kingship, Malchus. There is another way of this, and that is the way it's in its source, which it doesn't come down into Malchus, it's from its place, which means it's a much more intense or concentrated level of this godly revelation. And higher than that, the way it is in its root, which is Keser, the crown. We have 10 spheres. The top 3 are intellect, which means the head. Above the head, you have this crown, Keser. In the Keser, there's 2 levels, Atik and Arich. The higher level is where this Nun Shari Bina is. And not just the higher level, but the pnimius of the higher level, because there's an internal and external, so it's pnimius of Atik. And in there, that's where this Nun Shari Bina is. So what we're saying is, when we went out of Mitzrayim, we had Nun Shari Bina. That's how we got out of the 49 gates of impurity. It was not easy to get us out. We needed some spiritual boost. But it was the way it comes down into Malchus. So we didn't tap into Nun Shari Bina in Keser, or definitely not in Primus Keser. We had it the way it's here. Mashiach's going to come. Our Enu Neflois, I'm going to show you wonders. You ain't seen nothing yet. Because you're not only going to have the Nun Shari Bina the way it comes with the Malchus, you're going to have it the way it is in Keser. The highest of levels, all of a sudden we get access to Pnimius HaKeser. And the effect that it has on the Yidden is way more than just pulling us out of the 49 gates of impurity. It's a totally different connection, a deeper, much deeper connection to the Eibishter in a revealed way. It's about the middle of the paragraph. Not only that, in Keser itself, it's going to be the level from Atik itself, which is again is the higher level of Keser. And Atik itself, he quotes from Tzemach Tzedek, from the Pnimius of Atik. Let's just say it's a very, very deep level of Gilui Elikos. It says regarding Mashiach that Avdi, my slave, which refers to Mashiach, is going to be so high, going to be in a level of exalted, very exalted. Now, Me'oid, very exalted, which says this about Mashiach, refers to Pnimius Atik. Exalted means Keser. It's a high level, it's exalted. Very exalted means it's not just Keser. It's the inner level of the higher half of Keser. Pnimius of Atik. Okay, which means Shakol Hamshach is Achsha of all of the flows of divine realities that we have now. They're only from the Chitzenius of Atik, the external of Atik. Well, the Asid love Mashiach will come. Mashiach is going to come. You're going to have the flow and the revelation of the inner parts of Atik. We don't have that access now. We used it. Hashem gave it to us in certain cases, but through the path of Malchus. Mashiach comes, we have the real deal. So when we say it's going to be wondrous, it doesn't just mean that we're going to have greater tricks. There's a reason for that. In other words, there's be more wonders or more miracles, greater types of miracles. Because the Gilui that's happening in this world then is from a much higher place. We always have access to Atzmos, right? Essence of Hashem. It comes down through the sphere, so it's here. the name, the shine, the ray, whatever. But here we're talking about the Gili of Pnimius Atik. And this is our question. How could you compare it? Just like when our Mitzrayim, we had Niflois, we had wonders. Mashiach's going to come, we're going to have wonders. Really? The wonders we had then were wonders that were Malchus level of Nun Shari Bina, 50 gates of Bina. Now we're going to have it, you don't need Malchus, we're going straight from the top. The inner part of the higher level of the top. Pnimius Atik of Keser. Okay, Pirush HaPasha, because of Shul, because also in Yetzias Mitzrayim we had tremendous Giluyim. Let's not minimize. When we went out of Mitzrayim, we had tremendous levels. Right? It wasn't child's play. It was a real revelation of Elikus. Okay, Tafayin Reish Beis, as the Rebbe Rashab explains, in the Pirush that Hashem revealed Himself to the Yidden Himself with His essence, not through a malach, and not through a shliach, and not through a saraf, and so on. When we say Hashem revealed Himself to us, in His glory, in Himself, in His essence, these are some of the highest levels. We're not saying that Yetzias Mitzrayim was nothing. It's definitely a big deal. By Yetzias Mitzrayim, we had all these levels, but it went through Malchus. If you go through Malchus, automatically it's a lower level. It's more distilled. Where do you find this? The pasuk says, "Upasach Hashem ala Pesach." Hashem skipped over the door. Door, kabbalistically, opening, entryway, is Malchus. So you see even in the words that it went through Malchus in order to have the effect. The Pesach of Malchus. Mashiach's going to come, will have the same Gilui, but without any garment. It's not going to have to be enclosed in this thing called Malchus, where Hashem is the king, which He will be, and the whole world will recognize that, but it's not going to be only in that way to get there. The Pasuk says in Yeshaya, Mashiach's going to come, your teacher will not be hidden anymore. Which means there's going to be the revelation of this Nun Shari Bina, not only through Malchus, but you have a Gila directly from Pnimius Atik, which is in Keser. Yeah. So this all is to explain, in the Lashon of Kabbalah, what it means that there was a Nun Shari Bina, that there's going to be greater wonders than it was before. Not just wondrous compared to, which that's the simple meaning of the pasuk, is what you saw then, you're going to see bigger stuff now, but it's a totally different level. And it's bigger because we had Nun Shari Bina in both of them. To get out of Mitzrayim, we needed Nun Shari Bina. But there's three ways to get Nun Shari Bina. You get it through Malchus, you can get it the way it is and it stays above, or you can get it in a revealed way from Keser. Mashiach's going to come, we're going to get the highest levels of godliness, not hidden, not enclosed, directly to a Yid. How are we on time?
5 minutes.
Based on this, we have to understand based on all this, why do you even say that, like the days you went out of Mitzrayim, I'm going to show you wonders? Why? How could you even compare it? Why does the pasuk compare the wonders of the Gula Asida to the wonders which were when we went out of Mitzrayim? Now that we know that it's beyond anything that we had till now, why do you compare it? Number one, more than that is not understood. Based on the opinion. That we said there's one opinion. After Mashiach comes, we still mention Yetzias Mitzrayim. Let's zero in on this one opinion that says that after Mashiach comes, despite the fact that we're in a 2.0, so to speak, level, we're still going to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim. Why? It's child's play compared to what we have now. That was through Malchus, Nun Shari Bina, these big Giloyim and Hamshachis. And now Mashiach came, we have a totally different plateau. So why even, according to that opinion, why do you even mention it? It's known, the explanation from the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Begeulas Mitzrayim is Chadesh Klolos Inyan HaGeula. you can't just discount Yetzias Mitzrayim so fast. Why? Because when Yetzias Mitzrayim happened, we now have this new concept called Geula. Up until that point, we don't have anything that's Geula. There's never any redemptions. The idea of having Geula, that you're in a Golus and you get out of it, that was started by Yetzias Mitzrayim, and that's a very big deal. Even though now we're on a much greater level, and it's not hidden anymore, and it goes direct, all that stuff is true. However, you can't discount the fact that by going out of Mitzrayim is when it started. The pathway for all Geulos started then. Even though when Mashiach is going to come, it's going to be a greater Geula, says the Frierdiker Rebbe, that it started like the ability, the tzinor, the pathway that you could have a Geula started by Yetzias Mitzrayim. So whenever you have the start of something, the pioneer, the invention, even though we took it much further, truly much further, in this case, enclosed in Malchus, all the way to Pneumis Atik, and with access to that, you still have to remember and appreciate that it came from there. So Yetzias Mitzrayim is not just a standalone thing, which we graduated that, but thanks to Yetzias Mitzrayim, we got to this ability to have Geula in general. It's similar to the idea, he says, that Yetzias Mitzrayim is a preparation to receive the Torah. What's the whole thing of going out of Mitzrayim? But when I take you out of Mitzrayim, you're going to serve the Eibusha on this mountain, right? So even though the whole idea of Yetzias Mitzrayim and Cheros, Geula and Cheros, was a Matan Torah, right? True Cheros happens when you get a Torah, right? You're not free until you actually have Torah. But the introduction to that, the preparation, the start for that, was by Yetzias Mitzrayim. We got out of Yetzias Mitzrayim, was a preparation to receive the Torah. Why? Why is the main freedom after Mashiach, after Matan Torah? Because before Matan Torah we have this decree that the higher worlds can't come to the lower worlds, and the lower worlds can't go up to the higher worlds. It's like a king. The Medrash compares it to a king who said that the people from Rome can't go to Syria, and people from Syria can't go to Rome. There's a divide. You belong in this realm, you belong in this realm. Similarly, higher worlds are spiritual, malachim, shames, whatever else you want, and down here in this world is material, physical, human. This is what happens here. And you can't compare. You can't be elevated to a ruchnistic place and be more spiritual, and the world can't become elevated, and higher levels can't come down into this world. It can come down, but it's not going to connect. It has to go back. That's why everything the others did, any mitzvahs they did, and so on, the holiness didn't transfer to the physical thing. The physical thing didn't become holy. Matan Torah happens, and Hashem says, okay, I'm being mevatel this gezerah. I'm going to come down onto the mountain, which is godliness, onto a physical mountain. And now I'm going to allow it to connect. Now you can do mitzvahs, and the sefer is holy. And now your tefillin, it's leather from an animal, it's now holy. You could become holy. All these things it's very different, right? These things happen in Matan Torah, but the preparation for Matan Torah was Yetzias Mitzrayim. Just like you have Yetzias Mitzrayim being in preparation for that, and you can't just throw it out. Similarly, when Mashiach comes, we still recognize that the Yetzias Mitzrayim happened. Why? Because that was the start, that was the preparation, that got us to this level. Stay tuned, he's coming. Thanks for joining. Subscribe, like, share.